What's the best joke you know? What does a robot do during a one-night stand? He nuts and bolts. What's the difference between an oral thermometer and a rectal thermometer? The taste. A lot of people tell me I've got an addiction to brake fluid. Truth is I can stop at any time. Why do scuba divers fall out of the boat backwards? Because if they fell forwards they'd still be in the boat. Much more fun to say out loud than type, but two whales walk into a bar. Bartender asks, what can I get for you two? One whale goes, ooh, I try for Dory's humpback whale impersonation here. The second whale, go home Frank, you're drunk. Why don't you ever see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're really good at it. Not mine, but I think it belongs to my favorite ones. Doctor, will I be okay? I don't know. Mercury is in Uranus right now. I don't do astronomy, doc. Me neither. My thermometer just broke. Did you hear about the cheese factory in France that exploded? Debris was everywhere. I was in the office today and the cleaning lady asked if I wanted to smoke weed with her after work. I turned her down. I don't really like high-maintenance women. Two nuns were sitting on a park bench when a naked man runs by. One of the nuns had a stroke. The other couldn't reach. Stalin is sitting at his desk busy with paperwork when his assistant bursts into the room and says, Comrade Stalin, there is a clairvoyant here that wants to see you. He claims he can see the future. Send him to Gulag, says Stalin. If he could see the future he wouldn't have come here. A Buddhist walks up to a hot dog vendor and says, make me one with everything. Bonus for philosophy nerds. Descartes walks into a bar. The bartender says, hey, Descartes. I just got this new import beer in. Want to try it? Descartes says, I think not, and he vanishes into thin air. I mixed up the words jacuzzi and yakuza and now I am in hot water with the Japanese mafia. A man goes to a funeral. He asks the widow if he could say a word. He goes to the front and says, plethora, and sits back down. The widow leans over and whispers, thanks. That means a lot. Edit. Thank you everyone. I gladly will add on your lines when I retell this joke. You have all made my day brighter. Two guys are walking down the street when they see a dog licking his balls. One guy says, I wish I could do that. The other replies, well, maybe just try petting him first. What did the fish say when it hit the wall? Damn, my uncle's only joke. A penguin is on a long-deserved vacation from the zoo. He decides to take a road trip out west, where his car breaks down. Luckily, it's right in front of a mechanic in town. He drops the car off and tells the mechanic he's going to get some lunch. It's a really hot day. So after eating he stops by the ice cream shop for a little treat. Walking back to his car, the mechanic tells the penguin, it looks like you blew a seal. The penguin laughs. Oh, no, he said, as he wiped his mouth. It's just ice cream. I had a song stuck in my head the other day and kept singing it out loud. My wife finally broke down and screamed, will you please stop singing Wonderwall? I said maybe. People are shocked when they find out what a terrible electrician I am. Dad. The trash man's here. Tell him we don't need any. A proctologist walks into a bank. He needs to sign a document. He tries to sign, but he pulls a thermometer out of his shirt pocket. Oh sit. Some as hole has my pen. What did the sign on the door of the brothel say? Beat it. We're closed. I went to the zoo and saw a baguette in a cage. I asked the zookeeper about it, and he told me it was bred in captivity. Doc, you gotta help me. I can't stop singing. What's new, Pussycat? Ah, that sounds like Tom Jones syndrome. Is it common? It's not unusual. Why did the blind man fall into the well? He couldn't see that well. What did Cinderella say when she got to the ball? Makes gagging sound. I told this to my family when I was like 11? Went over well. This guy sees a sign. Talking dog $5. He walks up and asks the man, does this dog really talk? Owner. Yep. Bullshit. Dog. It's true. I can talk. Man. Holy shit. Dog. Yeah. I started out in the circus as a sideshow, until the CIA found me. They recruited me as a spy. No one suspects the dog in the room is listening to state secrets. After 2 tours, I retired here in the country to live out my days. Man, my God. Man, that is the most astounding thing I have ever heard. So, why the hell are you only selling him for $5? Owner. Because that dog is a liar. He didn't do any of that shit. What's the difference between a slob on a bicycle and a well-dressed individual on a unicycle? A tire. The divorce court judge says to Mickey, now let me get this straight, Mr. Mouse. You want a divorce from your wife Minnie because she's crazy? And Mickey says, no. I never said she was crazy. I said she was frocking goofy. What do you get if you insert human DNA into a goat? Kicked out of the petting zoo. 3 men went to hell, and they stood before the devil. The devil asked the first man, "What did you do for a living?" The man answered, "I was a lumberjack." The devil said, "Then we will chop your penis off." He turned to the second man, asking the same question he asked the first. "I was a fireman," said the second man. "Then we will burn your penis off," said the devil. He turned to the third man, asking the same question he asked the other two. The third man thought about it, and finally answered the devil, "I was a lollipop salesman." A boss had 2 employees, Alice and Jack. He only needed one, but they were hired at the same time and were both equally good at their job. He couldn't decide which to get rid of. He was sitting at a bar thinking about the situation. Alice walks in and sits beside him and asks, "You seem down. What's wrong?" The boss said, "I need to either lay you or jack off." Alice says, "Well, please jack off. I'm tired. I walked into the pharmacy and asked for some deodorant. The ball kind? Just for under the arms is fine." Why does a chicken coop only have 2 doors? Because if it had 4, it would be a chicken sedan. What do you call a dog with steel balls and no hind legs? Sparky. 2 windmills are standing in a field when one asks, "What's your favorite type of music?" The other says, "I'm a big metal fan." Why does the Little Mermaid wear seashells? Because she's too big for bee shells. Edit. Had no idea this was gonna blow up. Thanks all of you for all the awards. I bought the worst thesaurus the other day. Not only was it terrible, it was also terrible. Edit. Well, shucks. Thanks for all the awards and for my most upvoted comment. You're all great. And also, you're great. What's red and bad for your teeth? A brick. Guy walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "I'll show you something amazing for a beer." Bartender agrees. Guy pulls out a 10 pianist from his pocket and sets him on the bar. He starts playing beautifully. The bartender, wowed, demands, "Where the hell d'd you find that little man?" Guy says, "I've got a tiny wizard in my other pocket. For another beer, you can make a wish." Bartender agrees and says, "Wizard, I'd like $100,000. Suddenly the bar fills with 100,000 ducks. Bartender, confused and angry, says, "What the hell, mate? I didn't want 100,000 ducks. Guy responds, "Oh, you think I wanted a 10 pianist? Did you hear about the man with 5 penises? His pants fit like a glove." 2 cows are standing in a field. One turns to the other and says, "Did you hear about the mad cow disease going around?" The other cow responds, "Good thing I'm a helicopter." Waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay sounds like a great time if you don't know what either of those things are. How do you spot a blind man in a nudist camp? It's not hard. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? None. As a Finn, I have a special fondness for Russian, Soviet political jokes. 1. A new arrival to Gulag is asked, "What were you given 10 years for?" "For nothing. Don't lie to us here, comrade." Everybody knows, "For nothing" is 3 years. 2. A judge walks out of his chambers laughing his head off. A colleague approaches him and asks why he is laughing. "I just heard the funniest joke in the world." "Well, go ahead. Tell me," says the other judge. I just gave someone 10 years for it." What's the difference between a dirty bus stop and a lobster with breast implants? One is a crusty bus station and the other is a busty crustacean. Doctor, I swallowed a pen." "Well, sit down and write your name." I have a joke I tell kids. I start with the interrupting cow knock knock joke. Knock knock, who's there? Interrupting sloth, slowly. Interrupting sloth who? Wait a few seconds. 3 vampires in a clan are fighting over who of them is the best, and they decide to compete. The first runs into the nearby village and returns in 10 minutes. "See that house over there?" he says. "I drained the whole family." The second vampire vanishes into the village and comes back in 5 minutes. "See the church over there?" he asks. "I drained everyone inside." The third vampire heads out and comes back in 1 minute, face covered in blood. "See that tree over there?" he asks. "I didn't." What's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo? One is very heavy, and the other is a little lighter. What's blue and smells like red paint? Blue paint. Not mine. I went to a beekeeper to get 12 bees. He counted and gave me 13. "Sir, you gave me an extra. That's a freebie." A Chevy Silverado, a Ford F-150, a Ram 1500, a GMC Sierra, and a Toyota Tundra are driving in convoy. Best pickup line ever. What do you call a overweight psychic? A fortune teller. An elderly Holocaust survivor passes away after a long and productive life. He arrives in the afterlife and is told that due to his sacrifices, he gets to meet God immediately instead of having to wait. So he's very nervous as he meets God. He decides to break the ice by telling a joke. He tells a Holocaust joke. God does not laugh. The old man shrugs his shoulders and says, "I guess you had to be there." How do you find Will Smith in the snow? You follow the Fresh Prince. An Englishman, a Frenchman, a Spaniard and a German are all standing watching an American street performer do some juggling. The juggler notices the four gentlemen have a very poor view, so he stands up on a wooden crate and calls out, "Can y'all see me now?" "Yes. We. S. Yeah." Real dad joke coming up. What's a pirate's favorite letter? Most proceed to say RRRR. You'd think it's the R, but its first love is the C. Edit. Thank you for the Silver Stranger. Edit 2. Thank you for the Hugs Award. EDIT 3. First Gold. Thank you Third Kind Stranger. EDIT 4. A Rocket Life Award. Not sure what that is, but thank you. EDIT 5. Woke up to a load more awards. Thank you all. You wanna hear a joke about construction? I'm still working on it. I was walking down the street and I see this sad-looking kid sitting on the side of the road. So I ask him, "Hey kid, are you an orphan?" With a look of surprise he says, "Yeah. What gave me away? Your parents." I went to a zoo the other day and they only had one animal. It was a Shih Tzu. I actually commented this on another AskReddit joke post, so maybe y'all will appreciate it more. One day a koala was feeling super thorny. He walks out to the corner, finds a prostitute, and brings her back to a hotel room. He eats her out, wipes his mouth, and heads towards the door. The prostitute says, "Excuse me hun, I'm a prostitute. You gotta pay up. Look up. Prostitute in the dictionary has 6 for money." The koala replies, "Look up. Koala in the dictionary eats bush and leaves." As I handed my mother her 50th birthday card, she said, "One would have done." Mama Mole and Papa Mole ate having an argument when Papa Mole stops in his tracks. I smell something delicious, and scurries to the top of the mole hole. It smells like honey. Mama Mole scurries up beside him. It does smell like honey. Baby Mole scurries up and says, "Huh, weird. All I smell is molasses." Nothing beats a beautiful woman with a great singing voice. Except Chris Brown. What do you call a reverse exorcism? When the devil tells the priest to get out of the child. What's the difference between a hot potato and a flying pig? One's a heated yam and the other's a yeeted ham. A guy walks into a brothel that claimed to have custom services for any price. He gave a $5 bill to the receptionist. She then guided him to a room that only had a chicken. He hesitated but was very thorny and also broke. So he did the deed and left. The next day he had $10. So he went back to the establishment, where the receptionist told him that for that amount he got to watch a live 6 show. He goes into a different room where a bunch of guys stood in front of a big window where they could see a handsome couple having 6. He starts enjoying the scene and starts chatting to the man next to him. "Dude, this is awesome. Hell of a show." To which the guy replies, "Yeah. But it's usually not this good. Yesterday it was just some asshole frocking a chicken." So a boy asked a girl he liked to prom and she said yes. Elated. He went to a tuxedo rental to rent a tux. When he got there was a long line, so he waited in line to get his tux. Then he had to get a corsage for his date. He went to the flower shop. When he got there was a long line, so he waited in line to get the corsage. He had everything he needed and the big day came. He and his date had a great time socializing and dancing, and late in the evening they were alone at their table, talking. At one point, his date mentioned that she was thirsty, so he offered to go get her some of the punch. She smiled and said, "Yes please." So he went to get the punch, but there was no punchline. Wanna hear a joke about my cat? And the Lord said unto John, "Come forth and receive eternal life. ... But John came in 5th, so he got a toaster instead. The one that cracks me up the most at the moment is, how does a musician turn on the light at night? He opens the car door. What's the difference between beer nuts and deer nuts? One's $1.49 and one's under $1. Someone asked me to name 2 structures that hold water. I was like, well damn. My grandfather has a heart of lion. He is now banned from zoo. John walked into his local bar, says hi to the lads and orders a pint, takes a big slug and says, "Ah, needed that. Long day down at the battered women's shelter. My arms are frocking killing me." His mates think it's hilarious, and go back to chatting. John stares into his pint slightly hurt. He thought he'd done a really good job of putting in all those new shelving units and wardrobes. It's best said in Dutch, but it works in English. What's the difference between a pro footballer and a prostitute? One's got a cracked muscle, the other a muscular crack. Wat is het verschil tussen een pro voetballer en een hoer? De een heeft een gescheurd spier, de ander een gespierde scheur. What's the difference between a stripper and a waitress at a strip club? 6 months. Man walks into a Sick store. He gives the cashier a nod and asks for the biggest dildo available. So the cashier hands him a pretty big purple dildo. But the thorny shopper only scoffs and says, "Is that it? What about that red one in the corner?" The cashier replied, "I have a couple imported items that might be of interest, but the red one's not for sale, I'm afraid." So he brings out a few more items for the man to look at, a huge dildo covered in veins and a big rubber fist that continued up to the elbow. But still the customer wasn't happy. He said, "Yay, they're pretty big, but I'll pay double for that red one in the corner." So the cashier sold him the fire extinguisher for a healthy sum and the customer left happy. How much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. It's not a good joke. But this absolute pillock used it to introduce himself and we're now married and have a kid, so I have to concede it's the best joke. It's about amnesia, but I always forget it for some reason. I saw a girl crying, so I asked her, "Where are your parents?" And she started crying even more. Man, I love working at the orphanage. Me, I can speak any language in the world. I'm fluent in every single one, except Greek. Go ahead, try me. Bilingual person says something in a non-English language. Me, that's Greek to me. Bonus points if the bilingual person knows a difficult or obscure language. A man and a woman are starting their work day. She looks at him and says, "I'm so over this today. Watch this, I'm gonna go home early." So she ties a rope around her ankles, throws it over a rafter, hauls herself up and starts swinging back and forth. Boss walks in, sees her, and says, "What the hell are you doing up there?" "I'm a light bulb, I'm a light bulb, I'm a light bulb." She yells down. Boss says, "You know, I think maybe you need a day off, why don't you head home?" So she lets herself down, winks at her coworker, and walks out, hot on her heels. The male coworker starts walking out behind her. Boss says, "And where do you think you're going?" "Well, you don't expect me to work in the dark, do you?" I can't wait to not remember a single one of these when I'd actually like to tell one. I have a knock-knock joke, but you have to start it. I have no jokes. What's the difference between a lentil and chickpea? I would never pay $200 to have a lentil in my mouth. How many dead hookers does it take to change a light bulb? Apparently more than 5. Because my basement is still dark. What do you call an Icelandic baby that dies in childbirth? Still Björn. I only know bad ones. What do you call a fly with no wings? A walk. Badamp TS's. Edit. To TS's. Because apparently it bothered someone. What's the difference between 3 digs and a joke? Your mom can't take a joke. R squared. No. R round. One chickpea is sitting in a bar. A second chickpea comes in, looks like he's been in a fight, battered and bruised. First chickpea says, "Dude, are you okay?" Second chickpea says, "No, I falafel." What do you call a deer with no eye? No eye deer. What do you call a deer with no eye and no legs? Still no eye deer. What do you call a deer with no eye, no legs and no dig? Still no frocking eye deer. I'll be watching art jokes to see all the reposts of these. Do you know those round hay bales you see in fields sometimes? The government is trying to outlaw them. Apparently cows aren't getting a square meal. Saddest part, I've had people believe it to be real. Air bale, not bail. 2 old men were comparing their powers of memory. The first old man said, "My memory is so good. I can remember my first birthday party." The second old man answers, "Well, my memory is so good I can remember going to a party with my dad and coming home with my mom. So I went to the doctor the other day and he told me I need to stop masturbating." "Why?" I asked him. He looks me straight in the eyes and says, "Because I'm trying to examine you." 2 economists are walking through the woods and walk past a pile of bear shit. The first economist says to the second economist, "I'll pay you $100 to eat that pile of bear shit." The second economist does and they continue their walk. They walk past another pile of bear shit and the second economist says to the first economist, "I'll pay you $100 to eat that pile of bear shit." The first economist does and they continue their walk. The first economist then says, "I cannot help to think we both just ate bear shit for nothing." The second economist replies, "Well, not quite nothing. We did cause the GDP to grow by $200. Anything Reagan said, especially the one about an American and a Russian arguing. The American says he can go up to the president in the Oval Office, pound his desk and say, "Mr. President, I don't like the way you're running our country." And the Russian says he can do that too. The American is confused and says, "You can?" And the Russian says yeah, he can go to the Kremlin, to the General Secretary's office, pound his desk and say, Mr. General Secretary, I don't like the way President Reagan is running his country. Edit. I also liked. I don't intend to make age an issue of this campaign. I will not exploit, for political reasons, my rival's youth and inexperience, and, just to show you how youthful I am, I intend to campaign in all 13 states. Where did Sally go during the bombing? Everywhere. A man goes into a grocery store and buys 1 bar of soap, 1 toothbrush, 1 loaf of bread, 1 frozen dinner. The cashier says, "You must be single, aren't you?" The man replies, "How did you guess?" She replies, "Because you're frocking ugly." Why aren't koala bears considered bears? They don't meet the qualifications. Specifically, this is the best uncle joke I know. 1. Knock knock. 2. Who's there? 3. Secret police. 4. Secret police who? 5. Slap them upside the head and put on a bad German, Russian accent. They will ask ZQVESTIONS. What's the difference between Tiger Woods and Princess Diana? Tiger had better driver. What's brown and sticky? A stick. What's brown and red and sticky? That bloody stick. Q. What goes? Clippity clop, clippity clop, clippity clop, bang, clippity clop, clippity clop, clippity clop. A. An Amish drive-by shooting. I knew this guy that was dating women all over the country. He had a different girlfriend in every state, and while he cared about them all to an extent, the one he truly loved was the girl from Bangor. She was his main squeeze. What about you, Peter? I understand you have a daughter? Yeah. Henrietta, did he? I'm very sorry to hear that. Fry and Lori. Genius. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear. Why don't blind people skydive? Because it scares the shit out of the dog. I was once kidnapped by mimes. They did unspeakable things to me.